Hi guys, Martin from Preact. We're just going to quickly run you through how the Sales Hub works now in Dynamics 365 for sales. Most of you are probably already aware that Dynamics 365 sits under the Office 365 banner. If you was to purchase a Dynamics 365 for sales or any of the other licenses that are available, you would then be able to see the Dynamics 365 icon as an app within Office 365. So this is how we could automatically get into our database. For today's purpose, obviously once you go into this, there's different licensing formats, but we're just looking at the sales app today. So by doing so, obviously you can see you can have access to multiple apps, but for today's purpose, we're just going to be looking at the Sales Hub. So if I click into the Sales Hub here, you can see it then loads up the Sales Hub. Typically within the Sales Hub, it's designed for somebody that's working in a sales capacity. So a salesperson that would be basically taking potentially a lead, a new inquiry, right the way through to potentially managing their opportunity pipeline, sending out quotes if you need to, generating orders, and if they really need to, generating invoices if they haven't already got an integration with finance or ERP system potentially. And we've got a list of products in the system, so if you're already selling from a product catalog, we can predefine the prices up front. And of course, then we can pick those when we're on the opportunities or the quotes area, just to say, okay, this is what we're selling, and then we can produce a quote off the back of that. Typically then the Sales Hub obviously is these additional entities down here for sales. We've still got the four main areas of CRM. So, dashboards is a nice way of just sort of having any reports. If you've already got Power BI licenses and you've got Power BI reports, we can embed those into these dashboards as well now. We've got the ability to embed those in here. The good thing about that, obviously, then we can reference information coming from multiple sources and not specifically just from Dynamics. If you haven't got that and you just want to have some nice salesy type dashboards or any types of dashboards in here that's specific to user role, then we can create these as well. So a typical dashboard like this, you can see sales pipeline. I'm managing my open leads that I'm the owner of by source, and I can have any other views in here. And then down here, I might have a list of my to-dos. So I can go and create new tasks, emails, appointments, and everything else from here as well. I can work through my list and then complete those activities off, and it will take me back here and I can work through my list in this manner. And this information is coming here from the activity side. This is the core of what CRM does. So this is tracking all of our day-to-day communications with individuals, businesses, leads, contacts, you name it. And it's up here. It's tasks, emails, appointments, phone calls, letters, faxes, and anything else that you want to add in here. SMS text messaging now is another thing that's quite common. We can have those in here as well. But essentially, it's a list of my to-do list. So there's, currently I'm looking at my activities. There's 95 things. If I wanted to change this and look at what I'm doing and what my team members are doing, I can change that view and I can see mine and my colleagues' activities as well. If I want to look at every single activity that's ever come in over a period of a certain time, then I can quite easily change this view to activities in here like that as well. So activities is a way of managing our day-to-day communications with those individuals. This fully synchronizes to Outlook. So if we're taking an email, we can copy an email from Outlook into the database. Equally, we can take an appointment that's in our Outlook calendar and feed it in here. I could go in here and create a new appointment in here, and then it ends up in my Outlook calendar. Or if I change the owner of this and make it, ownership being one of my colleagues for the appointment, then they've got their preferences turned on. This will end up in their Outlook calendar as well. Accounts and contacts are, the businesses. Accounts are the businesses, the companies, the organizations that you're working with. Terminology can be changed here. You can see in my demo, there's 3,400 records. There's active customers, accounts that we're working with. Within this, we might have a subset. So within these 3,400, you might have a subcategory. In this one, for example, in this scenario here is suppliers. You might have suppliers. You might have a different list in here for your customers. They could be different places, different territories if need be. But essentially, it's the businesses you're working with. Contacts sit most likely below the business if it's B2B that you're selling. You don't get a phone call and email from the business itself. You tend to get that from an individual. So you can see we have an individual in here as a contact, all of their personal information. But then over here, if we need to link them to an account, we can. Like this one here, you can see he doesn't work for an account. It might be B2C sale. So we can just have him in here as an individual, not physically linked to any business of any sort. And then the sales process starts really with a lead. A lead is, if you could imagine, a prospect, a new inquiry, somebody we've never worked with in the past. It might be that you've just got a phone number or an email It might be that this lead's come in from somebody emailing your inbox and it ends up in this table as a new lead. It could be somebody filling out contact us form on your web page. That can come in here as well. It might be that you've run an event and you've got a nice CSV file off the back of the event. We can do a mass import as well in here of leads if we need to. Might be that you've scanned a business card and we've uploaded those from a scan of a business card and that's ended up in here as a lead. Or if your sales team are out and about, Dynamics is fully available on a mobile phone and an iPad with offline capabilities as well. It might be that they're just driving around and they see a business name. They just want to quickly capture the details of a lead, phone number, and potentially what type of business that is. So leads can come from multiple areas now. And obviously you can see they are in these tables. Like we saw in activities, when we go into any of these areas here, we can then see dynamic queries. So you can see there's 201 in here. I've called it open leads. This might be new inquiries, whatever you want to call it. And that's just looking at this column here called status reason, where the value equals new. If I was to change this and say, okay, well, show me every single lead that's ever come in, you can see it then, it's not dynamic. This is just absolutely everything that's ever hit our system. We can then report on ones that have been cancelled, ones that have been qualified across and things like that. So these views and charts are apparent throughout the database, and we can show you and we can train you on how to build these out yourself. So in terms of how the columns render, this is fully customizable. If you need to then apply filter to the column headings, we can do this now as well, and you can quickly see a subset of information if you need to. In terms of moving the columns around, we can show you how to add any custom fields in here that you need to, how you can customize this and move these around as and when needed. Obviously there's a few other things that we can do up here. We can export to Excel if we need to, so you can take the data offline quite quickly. And you can have some nice templates as well. So if you prefer to work in Excel and you want to have pie charts and bar graphs in Excel, we can export using a template in here, and then it would just take all of the data, these 201 lines for example in here, and then you could have some nice charts and some nice reports running in Excel at a click of a button basically in there. A couple of things that I really like as well, when we're in these views, we've got the ability over here to see a chart, for example. So the first field I've got in here is the rating. So what's really useful is out of these 201 to see a nice visual split. So out of these 201, how are they split out? So I'm just referencing this field here called rating. You can see I've got the three values here. I could have just applied a filter on here if I needed to, but it's quite nice just to say, okay, out of these 201, there's 98 hot values, there's 20 cold values, and there's 83 warm values. If I click on the 20 cold values, it automatically then applies a filter over here to this view. You can see then there's only 20 in here. If I then wanted to go into this even further and I wanted to pick another value, so I'm just going to use this field here called gender, and then I say, okay, well, show me the split again as a pie chart. Fine, we've now split this out and show me where it's a new inquiry, the rating equals cold, which is what we previously filtered over here, and now you can see out of these 20, what is the split based on this field value here. And if I then go, okay, well, there's 3 set of male, 17 at female. If I click on the 3 male, you can see it's now looking at 3 males that are new, that are valued at cold, rated. So in terms of the fields that go into this, as I said before, you can have any field you want in here. 2 or 3 clicks of a button, it's really nice way of drilling down and finding these specific records that you need. Once you've got these, there's a whole load of things we can do with this. We can trigger an automation of sending an email if we need to. We can trigger a quick campaign. It might be that we quickly want to add a phone call against all of these people, or run a mail merge or something like that. There's a whole load of things that we can do in mass around this. It might be that I want to then automatically assign all of these to one of my colleagues because I can't work on these for any reason. I can then quickly assign these to someone else if I need to. But once we go into this, we can click into any one of these leads, and then you can see, we just see a basic form. So when the lead form loads, you can see we've just got some, this is a new inquiry. There's some basic field level information over here, personal information around the individual contact. So email's very personal, job title's very personal, mobile number's very personal. We can capture any fields we want in here. So I've just added this extra field in here called sport and interest, and it's a multi-select, so we can select more than one value if we need to in here. Whereas insurance, it's a drop-down value. We might say she works for business services, and it's a predefined set of fields that we can pick from. Down here then we have company information. So she obviously works for this company here. All the details around the company, if they had a website and everything else that we can capture in here. It then shows and renders nicely on a map So if you are on a mobile phone application, again, just clicking on the Get Directions option here is a really good feature. Down here we can manage contact preferences, so GDPR reasons, and if we have any sort of marketing solutions plugged into this that we're doing opt-outs and things like that, then we can say, okay, well, bulk email do not allow and things like that. There's a whole load of options we can do around contacts preferences. And then of course just other information around potentially what they're interested in. So we might capture some estimated revenues. Again, there's that field for rating. You can see hot, warm and cold. What is the budget? Nice little slider button if we need to slide this, whether it's likelihood. Some of these features tend to render better on a mobile phone. So in terms of the plus and the minus values here, instead of just typing in a value like you can see, I could quite easily just change this value in here if I needed to. It then obviously just changes the value here. But if you're on a mobile phone, it might be easier just to use the plus and minus buttons. It's a bit more fun friendly and things like that. But essentially, yeah, we have field level information in here. And then of course we've got this timeline. So if I want to then start sending emails out from the database, or I want to log a phone call that I've just had, if I want to set a task against this individual, then I can. So I can go in here and I can say phone call, for example. I can then say, okay, it's a call about new inquiry. It's an outgoing call from me to Tracy, and I can then specify, okay, well, when I want to do this. So I might say, okay, well, let's do this tomorrow. Let's do this at, say, 9 o'clock. Perfect. Okay, this is then going to go save and close. What we're now seeing, anybody else, any of my colleagues looking at this that've got the right permissions to see this lead, can physically see then that I've got a phone call with Tracy, in the diary here. If I look at my activity list over here, it appears in here. Equally, if I've got my task synced into Outlook, it would appear in my Outlook as well. We're going to then get to the point where we need to enable potentially a process flow. So if we've got a sales dialogue and a process flow we want to adhere to, then we can go through this process flow that pops up. You could have this set by default to say, well, every time a lead gets created, we always want to see this. Or you could, like you saw me do there, go up here and pick a process. So we've then got, an onboarding stage here. I'll just pop this out. Looks a bit better on the right hand side over here. And it's just a set of fields. So have we asked the budget? Yes, we have. So we've got a tick. Have we asked the purchase process? Is it her signing off themselves, or she had to go and get sign off from a committee? Have we identified decision makers? So down here we can identify competitors and stakeholders that might be working on this deal, for example. There's a whole load of other options that we can have in here, and you can have any fields that you want to in here. Essentially, we're just trying to qualify this to become an opportunity, or we're going to try and qualify it out if maybe the budget doesn't fit our needs and things like that. A couple other things that we can do in these process flows as well in here, and this is quite useful. If you can see here, I've just got product of interest. I might just say, based on me picking a value, if you can see the process flow now goes down this stage. If I pick another value, this process flow could change. Now, it doesn't have to be a product of interest like this. It could be a yes/no field. It could be any values that you're picking in here that it needs to go down a completely separate route. So we can have conditional branching on this to really help your users understand your sales process without knowing it fully. It should be predefined with some logic to say, okay, you've answered this question, now do this and go there. A, B, and C needs to happen before D type scenario. And once we've filled out all this information, then of course, we've added in our emails and our phone calls and everything else in here. Then we can qualify this across. So if I just click qualify here, it's going to then move into the next stage and it's going to create all of these details. If I didn't want to do that, I could quite easily come up here and I could click disqualify. I could give this a status reason in here, and of course then that feeds into our reports that we're looking at over here. For now, I'm just going to click qualify. At this point, it will do a slight duplicate detection. You can see it saying, okay, duplicate warning. No, it hasn't identified any contacts and accounts in the system. Perfect. If it had, it would have shown us the ones that it potentially had identified. So it keeps your data nice and clean, and you can set those rules up yourself in the background. But now we've gone across here, we're now into the next stage. We're now into the opportunity stage here, but you can see the account has now been created. The contact has been created. So this account now sits over here in this table. The contact sits over here, but we're now looking at this opportunity that's been created, and this sits down here in its own opportunities area. We can then capture any additional fields we might want to in here. So we might need to enable, multiple price lists if you're selling across multiple currencies and things like that. For now, I'm just going to say it's pound sterling that we're selling in. We hope that this deal is going to close maybe the end of next month, for example. How much is it going to be worth? I should have pulled this through from the lead, but let's just say 10,000 again. Again, have you identified the stakeholders? You can add these in here. Have you identified the competitors? Again, you can add these in here just by quite quickly going, okay, we'll add existing. If it exists, then you can pick a value from here. If it doesn't, then you've got the right permissions, you can create a new one in here as well. Just helps that if you say, okay, well, this is who we're up against, this is the sales team working on it internally, and maybe this is the stakeholders working on it from client side, for example. Again, you can fill out all this information, and then we can move to the next stage. So we know where this inquiry's come from. We've now done a sort of a basic onboarding, added some, some numbers against this opportunity, for example, and then we can move to the next stage in here. Now, when we're in here, it might be that we need to then start building out exactly the products that we might be selling. Now, previously I mentioned that we have a product catalog down here. What we're now doing is we're going to say, well, we want to add a product into this opportunity. So we can click add product here. This will then load up, a list of existing products. And then from here, we can just go through and pick any one of our products. If I say it's 24/7 annual support, you can see it's automatically prefixed with a value. I can set quantities in here, tax, reasons if I need to, discounts. I can add all of the information in here if I need to, basically. But now you can see we've got a one line item in here. It's £1,200, and if it's one of those, if I need to add a line item discount in here and adjust the quantities I can go through and fill this information out. Now, one thing that we can also do, if we click add product, we can change this from being existing to what we call a write-in. So this is like an ad hoc product. This might be postage and packaging, for example, and it might be a set value. So if I say £500 for postage and packaging, something like that, you can see then it adds another line item. This P&P will not be in here as a product going forward. This is just something I've needed to add to this in order to be able to, price this up. So now if I change this, can you see that it's still set at the 10,000 that we originally discussed? If I change this to system calculated, this field is now locked. So this field is now giving us a true value of all of the products that we've identified down here. If I need to go through and add any, if I say I want to give you a 10% discount, then I can go through there, just save that. You can see it now automatically applied 10% to the discount. There you go, it's automatically calculating that for us. Or we can give it a blanket discount in here if we need to. But essentially, we've done all of this, we've covered our products. At this point, if you don't want to go across to you don't want to send a quote and you just want to stop your pipeline, then you can just do close as won or close as lost. Close as won will set your actual revenue. Close as lost, obviously, it will say, give us a reason why it's lost. But if you want to go through to the quote stage, you could come in here and you could have multiple quotes in here if you need to. I'm just going to click next stage here and move to the next stage and create a quote from here. So just by creating a quote, you can say, yep, all the details are pulling through from the opportunity, but it just retains this process flow. So we've now got this process flow across the top here that's been retained. So we know where it's come from. That's the inquiry. We've then filled out the information from the opportunities area. We're now in the quote stage. And obviously by being in the quote stage, we've got a unique quote reference ID. If I want to get the products from the opportunity, I don't want to create those again, then fine, I can just say, okay, get products. You can see then it pulls in the products that we've previously discussed over here at the opportunity stage. So over here, we've got those details. We need to then potentially fill in any shipping methods, any payment terms, any freight terms, anything else that you want to capture in here, we can. In terms of billing addresses, we've got bill to addresses, we've got shipping addresses. If you want to click on here, look up address, you can see the customer. So this is looking at the account. We can have up to 4 or 5 different addresses that we need to store against the account if we need to. Just by clicking on look up address, I can say, okay, we'll pick that address, use that for the billing and use that for the shipping. Just by doing so, you can see it's now filling in all the details in here that we've got predefined against the billing and the shipping address for the account over here. Once we fill all this information in, then if we activate this quote, it now becomes read-only. So we can see it's a read-only quote in the system. You can see I can go through, I can't physically change anything in here. If I needed to revise this down the line, then I can click revise and it will just increment this revision by 1. I'll just show you that now. Look, if I revise it, you can see it's now saying, okay, well, this has now been revised by 1. And what we will see against the account, we'll be able to see a list of all of these quotes at any one time. The ones that are won eventually, hopefully, ones that have been draft status, ones that have been cancelled, ones that have been revised. We can see a trail path of all of this information if we need to. So just activate this here. So once we've activated the quote again, you can see revision IDs there, as I said before. A couple of things that we can then do. A few clients like to just work with Word templates. So you can see here you can have some predefined Word templates. If I just generate one of these, what it does is it just downloads like this, to your machine locally using Word. This is really beneficial that some of these sort of documents that you need to have in terms of to be able to edit them, you have to go back to the developer and change a few line items and things like that. You don't have to in Dynamics. You can see it's just a predefined Word template, but it's actually pulling information from, so you can see the unique quote reference ID there. It's the same as one over here. Those products that we sold are now in a repeating table down here. But the design of this is obviously, you know, as long as you understand how to use Word, you can go in here and design these. Now you might prefer to use this and then, you know, download this as a prefix template, pull in information, then you might want to tweak it before you send it out to the customer. If you want to do that, that's one way of doing it, as a Word template. But now Microsoft enabled us to do this as well. So the same Word templates appear in here, and we can just create them straight as a PDF, save it locally, attach it to an email if we need to. But we've got this option here now as well, email as a PDF. So if I click here, it's the same Word document that you just saw, but all it will do just by doing so is it loads a blank email. So we've then got the option of just typing out the email details from here and customizing the fonts, the font sizes, and how you would do a normal email basically down here. Got the ability to, obviously it's pulling in my signature from my user card, but I've got the ability to insert a different signature in here if I need to. If I need to send it from one of my colleagues or group mailbox or something like that. We've also got then the ability to click insert template. So if I pick template, again, you can have these predefined up front, what these templates look like. If I just pick something like that, then it just says, yep, do you want to change the subject line? Perfect. Then it's just going to put in from whatever your template is. So there, and then the customer name here and all the other details. But over here, it's taken that Word document, it's packaged up as a PDF, and it's sat this against the email as an attachment. Now I could quite easily just go click send, and then that will send that out. Or I've got a few other options down here. I could say, well, send it later. I can click on here and I can send it at a later date. If I say set myself a reminder and I do that, then up here or in the same area in the dashboards that we saw earlier, you can see it just pops up in this relationship assistant. So remember, like this, email reminder, check you said that you were going to see if that email's been opened type scenario. And from here, you'll be able to click into it. And then down here, you'd be able to see whether the email's been opened or not, basically. For now, I'm just going to click send now. So you can see I can click send here. And then that will just go off. It will send it. But now anyone looking at this quote, when we look at the timeline, you can see now on the timeline here, we've now got, this is the details, this was the attachment, everything else. So again, building this whole sort of breadcrumb trail of the timeline against this individual quote, we can then see this. But I'll show you that in a minute against the account and what this looks like as well. But yeah, it's all in here, all the details. We've sent the quote out. If they come back and they don't want to revise it, perfect. If they do, we just click revise again and keep doing this. For now, if I just say, okay, well, actually, they're happy to go ahead with this, we can then click create order. That will then move this to say, okay, do you want to now close down the opportunity? Well, we do. Sometimes there's an argument to say we don't always want to close down the parent opportunity, you know, tender reasons and things like that. But for now, I'm just going to say yes. So we're going to say, yep, close that down. It's going to now close our pipeline out of a one opportunity for that opportunity with this amount, £1,530. But by retaining this, we can see again where we've come from, the pipeline we've carried out, the quote proposal. Now we're at the order stage in here. Of course, then against an order, you can fill out requested delivery dates, get any other information, but you can see most of this has been pulled through, the billing address, the shipping address, again, the discounts. But now on here, we've got a direct link into the account, to the quote, to the opportunity. From here, you might just want to then fulfill this. You might want to cancel the order. You might want to create an invoice from the order. If you want to click create invoice here, and this is your process that you want to go through, you can go straight again into an invoice. And then you can see from here, you've then got the option of setting the status to say the invoice has now been paid or cancelled. At this point, if you have an integration with something else, most likely you will have, we can do that. But yeah, we've basically gone through the typical inquiry to cash scenario. We've gone from the lead to the opportunity. We've quoted, we've sent out a PDF, we then create the order, we create the invoice. And all of this information now, if I click on the customer over here, this is the account level. So this is the account that got created when we qualified that opportunity across, that lead across. And you can see there was that initial phone call we had with the inquiry. We can then see the opportunity was created, the lead was qualified. Oh, we then sent a quote out, and there's that email alert. We can physically see the email in here and all the details around that. Then the quote was closed as one for that amount. We can see the opportunity was closed. And then of course I've just added some automation in here to say follow up a call basically. But again, when you're looking at this screen, you can see all the contacts. So Tracy came from the original lead. The contact that got created, she's now linked in here. We've got that open opportunity, that one opportunity that's now in here as well. But I've just added in this quotes area. So if you need to create a quote off the back of an opportunity, you can. So we've got now, we've created a quote in the system. If you want to then just refresh this, quite useful as well, we can then see total spend to date. And this can be based on all of these closed opportunities or closed quotes, orders, whatever you want it to be, basically. A few other customers like to say, well, if that equals a certain value, then prefix this to say give them 10% going forward. If they spend over $1 million, give them 10%. any new quotes going forward, if the phone rings now and they want to place a repeat order, instead of going all the way through that process, I could just come in here, I could create a brand new opportunity, or I could come in here and I could create a brand new quote. I could just do that straight against the account, and then we're back to where we were. We can fill out all the details from that. That's basically the sales process, start to finish, the inquiry to cash scenario. And just to show you a little bit how the Outlook integration works, obviously you saw me send that email out from the system, and you can see how that appears in here. But if we are in our Outlook, with Dynamics, we get this little window into the database. So just by clicking on an email like this one, you can see automatically, within seconds, it's going to check the email address and it's going to find all the details around this individual. So it's telling me Lauren Jones exists in my table as a contact. She's a CEO, that's her phone number. That's the account she works for, and all the other details. Now Donna, by clicking Donna, she doesn't exist. So at this point, I can go, okay, we'll create her as an account, a contact, or a lead. If I create her as a lead, then of course I can just copy some of these details potentially from here, and I can then fill in some details over here. Default, it would always take first name, last name, and email address from the sender's record. Of course, then I can say, okay, new inquiry number 2, something like that. And I can add that in. I can then capture all the other details, the company name if I need to, and any other details I want in here. This form over here on the right hand side is fully customizable to your own needs. You could scan a business card at this point if you need to, capture the details from there as well if possible. But if I just click save and close here, automatically then you can see it's now saying, well, do you want to view the record? So I can now see the lead is in here. I could get to it just by clicking view in Dynamics, and it would take me straight to Dynamics. Equally, if I just flick over here to my database, I've got the option of clicking in my leads table over here. Yeah, it's telling me duplicates popped up. I've already used that record before. But can you now see in the open leads, because this is sorting on, I think, ascending order on created on date, you can see that arrow is there, sorting on created on date. So anything that's getting created brand new as a lead, you can see now feeds into here. That's automatically in here. Equally, I could have searched for Donna over here. Now she exists in the database, so I could use this universal search option. This can be used as soon as the phone rings, and we can search for any fields in the database that we need. And now down here, look, you can see new inquiry 2, there's a new lead. And when I click into that lead, again, talking about this whole timeline in the middle section, you can see there's that email. So that email straight away from my inbox is in here. Now, just going back to my inbox in Outlook, one of the other things that we can do, this email might be to do with an existing quote. It might be to do an existing account, or it might be to do an existing case, anything like that. Automatically, because we've tracked this and we've copied it, can you see it gives us this track to Dynamics? The track to Dynamics basically means we've copied this email and we've created an entry in the database for everybody else to now see. It's obviously tracked over here to the individual lead, but it's not stopping me going, okay, well, actually this email is about something else. So I can then go change regarding, and then in here I can pick what it's regarding. So if I say it's regarding this Amazon account, for example, this will now sit and reside against this Amazon account. So if I come back across here and I just look at my pinned records, you can see over here that Amazon's a key account for me, so I've just pinned it. Save me have to keep searching for it. I'll just click on over here. Okay, they owe us some money by the looks of it, great. But when I've done that, can you now see in the timeline, because I've chose where to put this email, wherever I look now this email exists, and you can see it now exists on the timeline in here. Now everything I've shown you, obviously the inquiry to cash scenario is typically out of the box, the sales process. This can be fully tweaked. These forms can be fully tweaked with your own fields and captures that you need to, and designed how you want them to be designed. But that's very much the out of the box sales process. Thanks for listening, guys.